Hello there, this is Dominic Subaro doing a review of three things today, triple bill. They are two books and one film. The books are Attack on Titan by Hajime Isayama. I'm up to volume 12, but I'll use it as an excuse to talk about the series so far. And the other is Glacial Period by Nicolas de Crecy. I will also be reviewing a film I watched called Slow West starring Michael Fassbender. So let's just begin. Right, firstly, Attack on Titan, I'm up for volume 12. And I think, to be honest, if I'm up to volume 12, I think you can all make the assumption I am enjoying it as a series. But I will go into it. If nobody doesn't know what Attack on Titan is, it's a manga. It's a very interesting story in which it's based in the future, in which humanity is living in a fortress. A fortress broken up into different districts, but a fortress nonetheless. It is a fortress built because of Titans, these large entities, although they vary in size, which are cannibalistic in nature and don't seem to have any intelligence, but they roam the world and they predominantly dominate it. It focuses on a group of soldiers, young soldiers, who are part of something called the Survey Corps, and their role is to take on Titans. Now, on some level, I feel like some people may know more about the story, and some people might even reveal more about the story. I'd rather not. I will say this, if you're going to get into Attack on Titans, you will find it's one of those things where you can't read one volume alone. I always recommend that you read two volumes, the first two volumes, because the story is a slow burner to begin with, but then it ramps up, and each volume is a thoroughly enjoyable tale. But I do recommend this is one of the series, like those friends who recommend you watching the first 5 episodes of a series, read the first 2 volumes. It is a very enjoyable thing. I think part of why I enjoy it is because it reminds me, it's got sad undertones. There's an undertone of misery in the story. Misery, but at the same time resilience based on misery. It's very reminiscent in certain ways of Neon Evangelion, if anyone ever watched that. I never read the manga, but Neon Evangelion, a very good mech anime, which is 24 to 27 episodes long, is utterly brilliant, had an undertone of sadness in it. There was these characters who in their own ways were a bit broken by experiences, a bit tragic, but to a certain extent in some very strange way were going through their own journey of overcoming them. This is very true of Attack on Titan. You have this cast of characters, some with secrets which are harrowing, some with secrets which are just very personal, and it's about their journey and their dilemmas, not only simply in the fights, but also in their own issues with themselves. That creates a great story. The art is an interesting thing, mostly because I think, honestly, the guy who makes the art isn't an artist. He's not a superb artist. He's not the worst thing, but, I've seen better. But I think the beauty of it is his story. It allows his storyline to shine, but also his art can be ugly at times, but it works so well. See, the point about a lot of the Titans in the story, even though some come in many shapes and forms, a lot of them have a tendency to be these kind of grotesque-looking humans with smiles on their faces, where they look like they were in a daze. And the way he draws them, because of his ugly art style, it makes them that bit more terrifying. They're not stylized monsters. At their own core, they're an unsettling form of human. Just giant humans. And I think that's what makes them so interesting in how the art works, even though it's not a very good art style. As you know, I've read up to volume 12. I recommend reading it. I borrowed the first 12 volumes so far from Tameside Library. The next book I'd like to bring up is Nicolas de Crecy's Glacial Period. Now, Nicolas de Crecy is a French comic book illustrator and artist and storyteller even. This book, I won't deny, I was really reluctant about this book, mostly because I read another book and abandoned halfway, which he wrote, which was called The Celestial Bibendum. and it was the biggest pretentious pile of twaddle I have ever read. It involved, I think, a lot of symbolism based on the idea of this, what seems to be a seal with crutches, or it could be a dog. I think it's a seal with crutches who's travelling through a city, and how different groups of people tried to take advantage of him. And I think there's some type of ideology about the corruption of the citizen. I could be completely wrong. There's probably some uber intellectual out there who's just saying you don't get it, whilst they sit with their berets and listen to some utterly surreal band with a name like Peaceful Cacophony. That's not even a real band, but fuck it, there are people out there like that. This one I found more tolerable, and I actually enjoyed it. At its core, the plot is a group of archaeologists in the future are going for the snowy wilderness, and they dig up the Louvre, the French museum. And to a certain extent, it's watching these group of individuals, one including a genetically altered dog who has the ability to smell out carbon dating, so it can tell you by the smell how old it is. And they journey to the Louvre and how they interpret it with no back history of what the Louvre is. They see paintings, they think it's actually a person's house, a very wealthy person's house, whose each painting is part of a chronology. But there's also some other bizarre twists and turns, and the ending's just blimmin' weird. I enjoyed it. It's not the best thing I've ever read. I can't see myself pushing myself to call it one of the top 10. It's enjoyable enough. I really enjoy the art, but I think it's because I like certain French artists, and I did like Crecy's art. It takes some really wonderfully weird turns, which are, in my honest opinion, humorous. It falls flat on the fact that at its core, a lot of the dialogue is wordy as hell, and there is a part of me which thinks that someone's translated this. It may be pretentious in its own language, but it comes across at points as very pretentious in the comic. And it has a deep flaw which a lot of French comics produced by certain French translating companies have, where everything is Comic Sans. There's something about French comics, in my experience. This comes from the fact that I bought a lot of translated comics from things like... I'm trying to think what the name of the company is that have a tendency to translate books. Just give me one moment. Hello, I'm back. The books producers who make the French translation are called Cinebook. Cinebook use Comic Sans for everything, and I think it's disappointing, mostly because I think it shows a lack of respect for the art of lettering. Because I think lettering is something people really don't appreciate when it's used well. And I think that's one of the biggest problems. They just translate it and they put it on Comic Sans, which doesn't work with the art style. But to be honest, Comic Sans, it has a select appreciation. I'm not one of those Comic Sans haters. I think it's a definite font form, but just they've used it poorly here. Like I said, it's alright. I recommend it. I don't know how much it costs to find this book. It's a book which I borrowed from Oldham Library. You do with it what you will. It's not bad though, and if the plotline interests you, I recommend it. Right. The next thing is I watched Slow West. I watched this on Netflix. It's a UK New Zealand action film. It's directed by John McLean. It's his directional debut. I'm going to be honest, this backstory I am using Wikipedia for, but I'll get onto my own viewpoint on this. It also stars Cody Smith-McPhee as the other kind of lead role with Michael Fassbender. It's a story of a Scottish man who has found himself in the Wild West. He's trying to find a woman that he loves who got in trouble for murdering his uncle, and he actually loves her. He hasn't come for that reason. However, there is a bounty on their heads based on their crimes. By they, I mean the daughter and the father based on the incident. Okay. I won't deny, one of the disappointing things about this was the trailer's misleading. They do this very slick trailer. You can find it when Slow West was released. which involves using a song called Short Change Hero by Rexon, which I like as a song. I got it from Borderlands 2. I've heard it before, but my standout experience of it was listening to it in Borderlands 2. It gave a different feel to the film to what it actually was. There was this very upbeat song, if you've ever heard it. I recommend it, it's a good song. But then the thing is, you watch the film and it's slow. Don't get me wrong, I still enjoyed it as a film. I found it a really interesting... It's a visual treat. It focuses very much on its visual. Its storyline is in no way weak. Its storyline actually is really interesting, mostly because it's a bit of a tragic one. There's a lot of unrequited love aspects. There's interesting storylines of almost insecurities on the parts and the situations they're put in, these two leads. The dynamic works well. It's an interesting story. It almost feels like it's one of those post-Western films where, to a certain extent, it's not glorifying the West. And also there's this undertone of sadness, like they know the West is ending. The Wild West, the frontier, is kind of ending. It feels that at points. The actors in it I thoroughly enjoyed. It has a very small cast overall. I think it has many interactions which are based on one-on-one. There's no grand big city scenes so much. I could count there's about 30 people in the film as a whole, which may not sound outrageous, but if you think about what other films are like, it's not that bad. I enjoyed it. I recommend it to others who want a bit of a slow burning storyline. It does have its points where it ramps up, but the music is in no way like that trailer. It's actually a much somber music style. It's an interesting little story. I don't think it's made for a mainstream audience, mostly because I think, and I'm not trying to put any spoilers here, but it doesn't have a happy ending. But I think part of that's what makes the impact of it, because an undertone of the whole story is this tinge of tragedy almost. So yeah, I recommend it. Like I said, I watched it on Netflix. It's available there. It's on video on demand and it's on DVD as well. I mean, support it. It is a very enjoyable film. So those are the 3 things that I've reviewed for today. If I have anything else I got to review, I won't deny. Even though I know I shouldn't have. I did buy some comics at a comic sale. Some trades and some indie comics. Although in my defense, those indie comics which I bought them for ScribbleCon in Todmorden. And I will do a review of those as well. Maybe support some indies. So yeah. Anyway, this is Dom signing off.